So my hair is a hot mess, but that doesn't matter because today I am going to be reading and reacting to Pete Buttigieg fanfiction, which is an actual thing that exists. And based on our live stream from last night, I really need to do this because I must know the answers to all of my questions. So I'm gonna go do that. So I'm gonna go get my iPad and I'm gonna do that now. This is just for fun, BT dubs, and like no offense to any of the writers at all. I'm not gonna use my normal rating system or anything. I'm just doing this for fun. So yeah. I haven't been sitting here for 20 minutes avoiding this. Oh, no I haven't. Avoiding reading this? Okay, maybe I'm slightly avoiding reading it. Maybe. Oh my god, there is fanfic. Oh my god. Okay. I was kind of hoping there wouldn't. Well then, this is gonna get real interesting. So I'm just gonna start on Wattpad here. I'll go ahead and screen record so y'all can see and hear what's going on. Sorry about the cars outside. There's nothing I can do about it. And hopefully this tripod situation works because I'm just using my phone and a jar of buttons. So these first two are just links for reasons. That doesn't even link. The platform doesn't even support it, so you wasted your time. But okay. I can't believe I'm actually doing this.
Pete has always been an overachiever. The young mayor of South Bend, Indiana, has spent his entire life laser-focused on work. Between school, internships, military service and a political career, he never had time for a personal life. All that is about to change. In the span of a few weeks, Pete goes from carrying a gun in Afghanistan wondering if he will make it home alive, to realizing he only has one life and he needs to make the most of it. It doesn't help matters that he's still in the closet. After finally finding his place in the world as a teacher, Jason is ready to settle down with a husband, a dog and some kids. A quiet and drama-free life is what he craves. Why did the cutest guy on his new dating app have to be a popular politician? This is a biographical romance based on true events.
Can't believe I'm
Some creative license has been taken with the story to fill in the gaps of missing information.
But
if you have knowledge on anything I got wrong, please send me a PM and I will fix it.
My life.
Thank you. Voiceover off.
I just think we should have some fun content options.
What landscape? Read this. 3 exclamation marks. It's always good to be educated even if you aren't old enough to vote. Voiceover off. Voiceover. People awkwardly stumble over Pete's last name, Buttigieg. But then he tells them to say Buttigieg and they have a good laugh. Pete has a lot more than a good sense of humor and a way with people. He's a prodigy. An Oxford grad, a Navy veteran, and mayor of a small Midwestern city. He's missing one thing. Love. Well, and sex. His family and his city have accepted he's gay. Now he just needs a man to do the same. When he meets Jason, he thinks his life is complete. Until one election changes everything, and Pete hits the road to the White House. Join Pete and Jason along the wild ride of America, freedom, and hope. People awkwardly stumble over Pete's app switcher, What?
I
Voiceover
also can't
off.
believe that this many people like actually tried to post like links of shirts. Like that's not gonna work, guys. The platform literally doesn't support links like that, so. Any of those I'm just gonna skip because it won't work.
Home button to the left. Wattpad. Back. Button. Hey, my name is Violet and I am just writing for fun. Smiley. This story is about Pete Buttigieg and his husband Jason Buttigieg. Future POTUS and first gentleman. Fair warning, this story has smut. Fluff too. But mostly smut. Voiceover off. What? Landscape. Home button to the left. Arlette Willis is a political aficionado and a proud American citizen. She is also a supporter of Pete Buttigieg. Correct pronunciation is the title of the story, also known as Mayor Pete. Follow Arlette as she exercises a sacred American civic duty, voting on presidential election day in 2024, roots for a special young man from Indiana with a funny and unusual name. Finds out who will govern the app switcher. Wattpad. Active. Wattpad. Back. Voiceover off.
Well, I'm gonna pick one, and then I'll be back, and we're gonna read it. Yay! Again, all credit goes to the original authors, and I'll link all their stories down below. But yeah, so I'm gonna start with these two weird ones just because. Oops, I didn't turn it. Okay, I'm gonna start with the two weird ones just because I want to know what the hell they are. And then we're actually gonna move forward to one of the real, actual ones. So.
What? Landscape. Was.
Okay,
Itself. Under creeping on that above lesser fifth wing. Page 3. From great open them. Above page 1 of 1. Page 3 of 3. Page 1 of 1. Voiceover off. Voiceover. Wattpad. Landscape. Get your file. Click. Simple way to read / download Militia by Macy Yates in PDF. EPUB. Read Militia. Page 1 of. Page 2 of 5. Read page 1. Page 1 of 1. Page 4 of 5. Top book. Top author. Il patir non e grave me stato cosa exitin. Voiceover off.
This is not in English. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna doubt this one's in English either. Oh, I'm not sure.
Voice. Wattpad.
Okay.
Wish you have good luck. Page 2 of 5.
This might be
Page
the
3.
English version?
John Sullivan didn't ask to be born. And he certainly didn't ask to be crazy. But that's what happens when somebody else gets to pick out your DNA. Under the Genetic Equity Act of 2141, all artificial modifications granting unfair advantage belong to society. As the genetically engineered son of a famous mobster, Sullivan's physical gifts and illegal provenance condemn him to a life of government service hunting and apprehending others like himself. It's a perfect fit for Sullivan. Cursed with a state of unending aggression and neurologically inhibited from interacting with his anger, fieldwork is the only place he can explore his psychological demons without revealing how unhinged he really is. A disconcerting shift in his volatile mental state becomes frantic race against time when a brilliant scientist disappears with a groundbreaking discovery. The trail. Voiceover off.
I don't think this has anything to do with anything else. I think they did because it's translated. So, we're just gonna leave this. And we're gonna go up here to one of the actual ones. Now I know that there's more on other platforms, and we will get to those. Oh boy. God, where does one start? I guess here. Oh, I need to explain that. This could get very interesting. Alright. Okay. Here goes nothing. Or everything, depending. Wait. Okay. Oh, that's right.
Voiceover. Thanksgiving was always a good time in the Buttigieg household. Food, family, friends, and overall good times. After everyone left,
boy.
Jason and Pete began to clear the table and put away leftover food and put dishes in the sink. It was Jason's turn to wash the dishes as Pete took the dogs out. Drowsily, Jason began to wash the food-stained dishes in the sink. Pete walked clumsily out of the front door. Due to the amount of turkey they ate, they were both sleepy, with the dogs on their leashes to walk down the beautiful streets of South Bend. Pete always loved the Bend in November. Pete walked in the door, unleashed the dogs, and began to slowly walk up to Jason as he was doing the dishes. He gently wrapped his arms around Jason's waist and hugged him tightly from behind. Voiceover off.
Okay, I can't. I need a minute. I can't believe I'm actually doing this shit. I have to tell people. Okay, I had to just devolve into laughter and text Blake, who's the other person that's involved in, one of the other people that's involved in Pete Buttigieg Night Owls, which if you're seeing this, that's probably what channel you're seeing this on. Because I can't believe I'm actually doing this. But we're here, so I'm gonna get right back into it.
Thanksgiving was always a good time in the Buttigieg household. Food, family, friends, and overall good times. After everyone left, Jason and Pete began to clear the table and put away leftover food and put dishes in the sink. It was Jason's turn to wash the dishes as Pete took the dogs out. Drowsily, Jason began to wash the food-stained dishes in the sink. Pete walked clumsily out of the front door. Due to the amount of turkey they ate, they were both sleepy, with the dogs on their leashes to walk down the beautiful streets of South Bend. Pete always loved the Bend in November. Pete walked in the door, unleashed the dogs, and began to slowly walk up to Jason as he was doing the dishes. He gently wrapped his arms around Jason's waist and hugged him tightly from behind. Jason smiled as he placed his slightly damp hands on Pat's. Pete moved his hand up to Jason's chin to turn his face for a small sweet kiss on the lips. Jason continues washing dishes as Pete was still clinging to him and smiling into his back. Pete started to pull the edges of Jason's blue hoodie up to slip his hands under it and lightly rub Jason's chest and stomach. He didn't think much of it, that is until Pete began to nip at his jaw and place light kisses down his neck. Jason drew in a quick breath. Peter, ellipsis. Jason whispered. Pete kept roaming his hands around Jason's body, from his chest to his stomach to his upper thigh. Jason breathed out slowly as he rested the back of his head against Pet's shoulder. Pete laughed, knowing that Jason has now given in to him. He put his hand on Jason's belt and began to fumble with the buckle as he took it off from around Jason. Pete started palming Jason through his jeans and could tell that he was already hard. Jason moaned out. Already hard, baby? Pete taunted. Shut up. And stop teasing me. Pete quickly unbuttoned and unzipped Jason's jeans and started kissing his neck again. Pete put his hands in Jason's boxers and grabbed his shaft and gave it a tight squeeze. Jason screwed his eyes shut. "Oh my God," he said in a high-pitched tone. He let his hand migrate to Pet's leg and gripped it for support. Pete lightly stroked Jason's cock as he rubbed his side for comfort. "You're so pretty. Your moans are so cute. Does that feel good?" Jason took a minute to respond because his mind was foggy from pleasure. Pete, being a musician, was very good with his hands. And he knew exactly how he's liked it. Jason's moaning got louder. As a result, Pete moved his hand faster and flicked his thumb over the tip because he knew it drove Jason crazy. "Im close, baby. 4 periods. Fuck," Jason said as he thrusted his hips into Pet's hand movements as well as grinding back into Pete. "Go on, babe," Pete said before deeply kissing him. Jason grabbed Pet's arm tightly. "Fuck. Fuck. Fuck. Peter," Jason yelled as he came in thin white ropes on the counter. "That's it, baby. Good boy," Pete said as Jason rode out. His high. Both tired, they slowly walked back to their room and laid down on the bed. Jason instinctively cuddled up to Pet's chest and fell asleep.
Why am I flushing so badly? Why worship? Okay, yes, the lighting has changed. Yes, everything has changed. It's about 4.5 hours later. But yeah, I needed a minute, and now we're back at it. So, sorry about that. We have tea. We have an electric blanket, which apparently I forgot to turn on, and that's why I was still shivering. Oops. And we have an iPad with more fan fiction on it. Which I'm kind of glad this one isn't just like extremely graphic all of a sudden, because I either in the first version of this video you've either seen or in this one you saw me and oh wow was I blushing. I don't even know why I was blushing that hard, but I was.
Voiceover, fluff, landscape. 2 men carrying heavy burdens. One of them seeks forgiveness through the rites of the confessional. Dunayazad 9. Summary. 2 men carrying, with thanks and much appreciation to Pakatreat Pete. Work text. When marital unity is imperiled by dissension, it shall be the duty, if possible. Page 2 of 20. When the penitent has confessed all serious sins troubling the conscience and has given evidence of due contrition, the priest gives such counsel and encouragement. 2007 ed. At 440, the Book of Common Prayer. Peter. He parked in the lot next to the cathedral, walked the short distance to the entrance with its Tudor Gothic arch, and slowly climbed the 5 steps from the nondescript sidewalk to the red double doors. St. James was a modest Midwestern reduction of the great cathedrals of England. The space between the steps and the street had seemed so much larger when they had burst out of the double doors on that bright afternoon in June, into the jubilant embrace of their families, friends and wedding party. Unbidden, he remembered the sense of boundless possibility he had felt then, the future of their lives together stretching before them to a horizon without limit, a future of shared joy and life in all its fullness. The contrast with the terrible reality of the present threatened to overpower him with its force, and the tight knot of pain he had carried in his chest for the last 8 months swelled into agony. Voiceover, fluff, landscape. Page 2 of 20. Page 3 of 20. And yet, he stopped at the door long enough to compose his. Page 2 of 20. And yet, here he was. He stopped at the door long enough to compose himself before opening it. If someone had told him that his dream of a whole, complete and infinitely loving life with Jason would turn to dust before their 2nd anniversary, he would have listened in stunned disbelief. And yet, here he was, his grief entirely the product of his own fault. He didn't know what he could do to earn forgiveness. Theoretically and doctrinally, he knew forgiveness could not be earned but was a product of God's grace. Yet as heretical as it sounded, he wasn't sure that it mattered whether God forgave him when Jason so clearly did not. Page 3 of 20. The cathedral staff at work in the building on his way to Brian's office greeted him and congratulated him on how well the campaign was going. He tried to respond with a cheerfulness he did not feel. The closer the campaign got to the convention, the closer he got to the end of his marriage. Father Brian welcomed him into his office and motioned him into a chair. He brought a chair around so that it would face him rather than sitting behind his desk. Pete had read the rubric in the Book of Common Prayer and knew that this was one of the suggested positions for hearing a confession. The tension he felt was daunting, but Brian was a comforting presence. Tall, solid, with salt and pepper hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He'd been doing this a long time and knew how to put people at ease. Whether it was a homeless person at the end of his tether or a presidential candidate whose personal life was in shambles. Congratulations on Pennsylvania, New York and Maryland.
I'm so glad
he smiled
it's
as
not
Pete sat
Bernie.
down.
Like, I was really worried it was going to be Bernie for a second. And I was going to be like, really? Bernie? Really? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love America's Crazy Uncle. But Bernie? The people? Yeah.
Well, we did lose Connecticut and Rhode Island, Pete responded. And Delaware.
Like,
Of course,
again,
New
I love
York and
Bernie
Pennsylvania are the big prizes. Brian shrugged. And you'll get to be the favorite son here in Indiana in less than a week.
Like, ew, nope, I'm good. Ew. Oh god. That's putting images in my head I don't want to have. Oh my god, wow. Oh.
Pete smiled in spite of himself. He'd seen the campaign's internal polls. He began hesitantly. As I said on the phone, I'm here as a penitent. He began hesitantly, and I'm here to listen. Brian's voice and his whole bearing radiated empathy. Pete lifted his head and locked eyes with the priest in that intense gaze he was famous for and willed his voice to be steady. Page 4 of 20. A flicker of stunned surprise crossed. Pete lifted his head and a flicker of stunned. I've destroyed my marriage. A flicker of stunned surprise crossed Brian's face and then was gone. It was not his job to be surprised. Pete shook his head. A flicker of stunned. The campaign? He asked hesitantly. Pete shook his head. No. Jason has been amazing about the campaign. He's thrown himself into it with an enthusiasm I sometimes wish I could match. It was something much more ordinary. Brian was looking at him expectantly, and Pete was having difficulty saying the words. Pete shook his head. This time Brian, I was unfaithful. This time Brian showed no surprise. Pete reflected that he probably understood very well how devastating this had been for Jason. Brian had counseled them before their wedding, and in the intense conversations they'd had, both of them had laid out everything they felt about the marriage vows they were about to take, and how their previous relationships, or in Pete's case, lack of relationships, had shaped them. He tried to explain what had happened, or at least tell the story. Even as he recounted the events of those 2 nights on the campaign trail in New Hampshire, he knew that the story as he was telling it didn't make a great deal of sense. Page 5 of 20.
Why did I let my head go there?
It was one of the other candidates, he began, and saw Brian's eyes widen subtly. Pete was respectful enough of Beato's privacy not to mention him by name. He described how they had met and talked over drinks, too many drinks, in the hotel bar, how they'd shared their loneliness, talked about their respective spouses, and how when they left the bar and reached the door of Pete's room, the other man had come on to him. How they'd gone into his room and had sex. How the other man had come to him the next night and they'd had even more intimate contact. And how Jason had joined him on the campaign trail the next day, and Pete had told him what had happened as soon as they got to their room. He described how Jason had run from the room, devastated. How he'd been gone for almost an hour, while Pete sat on a corner of the bed, racked with guilt, and how awful he felt when Jason returned, his face swollen and streaked with tears. How he'd tried to apologize, to atone, to do whatever he could to make things right, even drop out of the race, and Jason had refused. Brian listened silently, showing not an ounce of judgmentalism. Finally, he asked, Did you consider not telling Chasen what happened?
Oh.
Pete shook his head decisively.
I mean,
no. I felt I had to
certainly
tell
hope
him.
that they are.
We've never had secrets from each
But
other, and I
also,
didn't
that
think
you're
I could
probably
face
some of
him
the
with
most
this
vanilla
between
people
us.
ever.
Then he
I love you
hesitated
too,
briefly.
I do, but
After I
please
saw how
believe
much
you're
I had
probably
hurt him,
so
I
vanilla.
wondered if perhaps
And I
I
love
shouldn't
you
have.
with your adorable vanillaness. But
I think
also,
you did the right thing. Brian's voice was so supportive that Pete was surprised by his next
I love
question.
them.
But I think you're suggesting that you were surprised that he reacted as
that's
strongly as he
sort of,
did. Voiceover on. Fluff. Landscape. Page 2 of 20. Page 3. Page 4 of 20. Page 5 of 20. Pete struggled for a moment to remember what he had felt the night he told Chasen and whether in fact he had been surprised. He couldn't. All he could recall about that night was a blur. A haze. I guess I must have been, he said slowly. Or else I never would have let myself do it in the first place. Brian continued to press, sympathetically but persistently, echoing Pete's own words back to him. Were you able to explain to Chasen why you let yourself do it? Page 1 of page 6 of 20. Pete tried to remember the conversation he'd had with Chasen after they returned to South Bend, in which he tried to apologize and persuade Chasen to let him perform some sort of penance that would enable them to rebuild their relationship. All he could feel was an overwhelming sense of emptiness. I told him what I felt was the truth, that I didn't know why it happened. It just happened. And that I hoped we could move on from there. Brian sat up straighter and Pete felt a slight shift in the conversation. I can see why Chasen might not have been satisfied with that explanation, he said with a new note of firmness in his voice. Don't you? Taken aback, Pete felt his carefully maintained composure begin to crack. I guess maybe. But it was the only explanation I could give. Finally, the priest asked, Peter.
Apparently everything stopped recording and I have no idea what I missed. So, this is where we are now. This is probably going to be the last one for this section because I need to go downstairs and stuff for my live. I'm finally not freezing to death, so that's good because the other option was doing the live from here. I was never actually freezing to death, I was just cold AF. Okay, that sounds, oh boy, this is gonna get blushy already. I can tell this is gonna get blushy already. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh my god. Okay. Well, this is okay. Okay. Okay, I think I'm just gonna go set up for my live stream and I'll do this later. Guys, so, I'm still in bed. Ignore my cubs because I've been sick. Anywho, sorry I couldn't finish this last night, but basically there were people playing, oh my god, loud copyrighted music, and that's fun. Anyway, I somehow lost a ton of footage doing this video originally. But this is what it is, and yeah, they'll probably be installed too. This is gonna go up definitely on my regular channel, and I might end up doing a version of it for night owls. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when I get there. I'll talk to the team about it, which is literally me and Blake. We're the team. And I think that there's one other person who's going to be doing, after the first of the year, who's going to be doing like midday shows on all of our platforms, which is super helpful. But that's it. The team is like max 4 people. So, yeah, I'll talk to people and see what they think. I'll let them know that this video is going up. And yeah, I'm sorry it's so late, but life and being sick, my health comes first, and I shouldn't apologize for that. I should just let my health come first. My health should always come first. So, okay. I love you guys. Bye.